My name is Kayla Carter. I was 28, stuck in Austin crunching fintech data for a company that barely knew I existed. Tuesday afternoon phone buzzed. Mom's voice cut in. Flat, Kayla, honey. We forgot to book your flight and hotel for Ethan's wedding in Paris. Everything's sold out peak season. I glanced at the family photo on my desk, Ethan suited up, Jordan posing, parents glowing. I was half cropped out. Understood, I said. Click. No explosion. No tears. Just that. That night, I wiped my calendar, sold the couch for cash, stored the car. Dawn flight booked one-way, wrong continent. I powered off the phone and vanished for 5 years. Hit subscribe now to uncover where I landed, the empire I built from nothing, and why I cut them out for good. Bell on story starts. The next morning, I walked into my boss's office with a printed request in hand. Gloria, the head of operations who had guided me since my first internship, leaned back in her chair and eyed the paper. Kayla, this better not be a resignation. I placed the sabbatical form on her desk and explained the need for 1 full year to pursue advanced training abroad. She read through the details, tapping her pen against the edge, then nodded slowly. You've never taken more than a long weekend. I'll approve it, but the role waits only if you return stronger. Her signature landed with a quick scratch, and I left the building for the last time that week, carrying nothing but my badge to surrender at security. At home, I posted the dining set online and watched it vanish within hours to a college student moving off campus. The bookshelf followed then, the microwave and extra lamps, each sale adding a few $100s to a growing envelope of cash. I drove the sedan to an airport lot with monthly rates and locked it away under a prepaid plan that paused the registration. By sunset, the apartment stood stripped to essentials, packed into one rolling suitcase and a backpack holding my laptop. I confirmed the red-eye flight to Berlin using miles accumulated from years of solo business trips, then shut the door without looking back. Touching down in Germany, I navigated Tegel with a map app and took the bus to a modest studio in Neukölln, rented sight unseen for €550 monthly. The space featured a hot plate, a narrow bed, and a window overlooking a courtyard where neighbors smoked on balconies. I stocked the mini fridge with oats, eggs, and discounted vegetables from the Turkish market down the block, planning meals that stretched every euro. Enrollment at the Technical University started the following Monday in their AI fintech certificate program, a rigorous 6-month track blending machine learning with banking regulations. I paid the tuition upfront from savings built during overtime shifts nobody else volunteered for back in Austin. The remaining funds came from Grandma's trust, a modest inheritance she had structured to release at age 25, with instructions to invest in education or enterprise. My parents remained unaware of its existence, assuming her estate split evenly among the 3 kids, and I saw no reason to correct that assumption. Classes demanded early trains and late library sessions where I dissected neural networks designed to flag fraudulent transactions in real time. Professors assigned group projects that forced collaboration with engineers from across Europe, sharpening my ability to explain complex models in simple terms. Weekends meant freelance debugging for local startups through university bulletin boards, gigs that paid in wire transfers small enough to avoid tax headaches, yet large enough to cover rent. I tracked every expense in a spreadsheet, cutting coffee shops entirely and brewing at the shared kitchenette instead. Months passed in a rhythm of code reviews and grocery runs, my German progressing from basic pleasantries to technical discussions during office hours. The city's pace matched my focus, cold winters spent indoors refining algorithms that predicted credit risk with increasing accuracy. 3 months in, I met Grace at a tech meetup in a converted warehouse near the Spree. Grace, a French expat with a PhD in machine learning from Sorbonne, moderated a panel on real-time transaction optimization and spotted my question about cross-border latency during Q&A. She cornered me afterward over cheap beer and asked if I wanted to prototype something practical instead of just theory. We exchanged contacts and scheduled coffee the next day at a co-working space in Mitte, where she already held a resident desk. She laid out her vision for an AI engine that scored credit risk in milliseconds, using alternative data sources like utility payments and social graphs far beyond traditional FICO models. I brought my banking regulation notes from class, and we sketched the architecture on a whiteboard until closing time. Within a week, we incorporated a lean GmbH under German law with minimal capital from our personal savings, naming it Cred Risk AI to keep things straightforward. Grace handled the neural net layers while I built the compliance wrapper to satisfy BaFin requirements, ensuring every prediction carried an audit trail. We bootstrapped from her apartment, alternating coding sprints with investor pitch practice in English and German. Our first breakthrough came when a mid-sized Berlin bank invited demos after Grace networked at a fintech conference. I presented the dashboard showing 92% accuracy on historical defaults, and the risk officer leaned forward when we ran live data through the system without a single false positive. They signed a pilot contract for $200,000 over 6 months payable in milestones tied to integration success. The money funded cloud credits and a part-time developer from Poland who optimized our inference speed. Grace negotiated equity splits 50-50 from day one, trusting my operations background to scale client onboarding. We celebrated with takeout currywurst instead of champagne, then dove back into feature requests from the bank's fraud team. I handled client calls at odd hours to accommodate U.S. time zones for potential expansion, refining explanations until even non-technical executives grasped how our model reduced provisioning by 15%. Grace pushed the tech envelope, incorporating graph neural networks that mapped borrower connections and flagged hidden collusion patterns regulators missed. Word spread through Berlin's startup ecosystem, landing us a spot in a local accelerator that provided free legal advice and introductions to venture scouts. We declined early term sheets to retain control, focusing instead on product-market fit, validated by the bank's renewal option at triple the initial fee. My days settled into a cadence of stand-ups with Grace code merges on GitHub and evening runs along the river to clear mental fog. Expertise grew organically. I authored white papers on ethical AI in lending that circulated among European central bank advisors, positioning Cred Risk AI as a thought leader without paid marketing. Family remained a closed chapter. No forwarded mail, no social media checks, no accidental overlaps in professional networks. Grace asked once about emergency contacts for the company insurance form, and I listed a Berlin lawyer instead, ending the conversation there. The bank's final milestone payment cleared just as we prepared version 2 with multi-currency support, opening doors to Scandinavian institutions hungry for similar tools. Grace and I mapped expansion on a shared Notion board, prioritizing revenue over rapid headcount to avoid dilution. Year 2. An email from Victoria made me pause mid-scroll. Victoria, the chief revenue officer at Nexus AI in New York, had tracked my white papers and accelerator mentions, offering the role of vice president for global fintech, with a package that doubled my Berlin earnings and included equity vesting over 4 years. She scheduled a video call the same week, probing my experience scaling risk models without once mentioning my sabbatical gap. I negotiated remote interviews from a rented desk in Kreuzberg, presenting case studies on European bank integrations that aligned perfectly with Nexus's expansion into payment gateways. Victoria countered with relocation support and a signing bonus, sealing the deal after I demanded full authority over product roadmaps for credit analytics. The move happened fast. I sublet the Berlin studio, shipped 2 boxes of clothes and servers, and landed a corporate apartment in Midtown Manhattan with views of the Hudson that felt earned rather than gifted. Nexus occupied 3 floors in a WeWork tower, buzzing with engineers who debated microservices over cold brew. My first quarter focused on auditing legacy code and assembling a lean team of data scientists poached from competitors. Victoria introduced me at all hands as the expert who would win enterprise deals, setting expectations high from day one. I mapped out a request for proposal strategy targeting Fortune 500 banks, dissatisfied with outdated scoring systems. The breakthrough arrived through a multinational lender headquartered in Chicago, seeking AI to underwrite small business loans across 50 states. I led the pitch in their boardroom, demonstrating real-time approvals that cut processing time by 70% while maintaining regulatory compliance. The contract closed at $3 million annually renewable with performance clauses that favored scalability. News traveled quickly in industry circles. My former employer in Austin, still struggling with outdated infrastructure, lost the same RFP and watched their pipeline dry up as clients migrated to Nexus solutions. Internal memos leaked about emergency budget cuts and delayed product launches, signaling the start of a downward spiral that analysts predicted would erode 20% market share within 18 months. Victoria rewarded the win with expanded budget authority and a seat on the executive committee, where I influenced hiring freezes at rivals by offering premium salaries to their top talent. Nexus stock ticked upward on earnings calls, citing the new revenue stream, validating my integration playbook. Life in New York settled into early mornings at the office gym, followed by strategy sessions in glass-walled rooms overlooking Times Square. I furnished the apartment minimally with items from West Elm sales, cooking simple meals on weeknights, and exploring Brooklyn markets on weekends without posting a single photo online. Professional networks grew through conference keynotes where I shared anonymized success metrics, drawing headhunters who floated competing offers I politely declined. Victoria mentored the balance between aggression and sustainability, reminding me that sustained growth beat flashy quarters every time. The Austin firm announced layoffs affecting 200 staff, including entire departments I once collaborated with remotely. Trade publications ran pieces on their failure to innovate, contrasting sharply with Nexus case studies featuring my frameworks. I read the reports over coffee, feeling no nostalgia, only confirmation that distance had sharpened my edge. Daily operations demanded cross-time zone coordination with European partners and Asian vendors, honing skills in diplomatic negotiation that translated directly to boardroom influence. Victoria delegated P&L responsibility for the fintech division, trusting my forecasts to guide investor updates. Independence extended beyond work. I opened private investment accounts, diversifying into index funds and fintech ETFs that mirrored industry trends I now shaped. No shared finances, no joint decisions, no explanations required to anyone outside the C-suite. Back in New York, a LinkedIn message from Kyle made me smirk. Kyle, my ex-boyfriend from the Austin days who had vanished after I left for sabbatical, claimed he led a new AI risk platform at a struggling competitor and wanted to catch up on old times over virtual coffee. I ignored it at first, but his follow-ups attached slide decks eerily similar to prototypes Grace and I had shelved months earlier. The coincidence escalated when he announced a panel spot at FinTech World in Las Vegas, touting features that mirrored our unpublished graph-based fraud detection. I registered under Nexus credentials, preparing a counter-presentation with time-stamped comments from our private repo to establish provenance. Victoria approved the trip as competitive intelligence, covering expenses without questions. On stage, Kyle projected confidence in a tailored suit, demoing what he called innovative clustering algorithms to an audience of 200 executives. I waited for the Q&A, raising my hand calmly when the moderator opened the floor. My question highlighted specific code structures lifted directly from our Berlin experiments, backed by screenshots of commit histories dated before his supposed launch. The room shifted uncomfortably as I displayed side-by-side comparisons on the shared screen, pointing out variable names and optimization loops identical to ones I authored during late-night sessions with Grace. Kyle stammered excuses about open-source inspiration, but the moderator requested verification, and a quick search revealed his repository forked privately from a leaked university archive tied to my coursework. Post-panel buzz turned against him. Attendees whispered about intellectual property theft, and social media threads dissected the evidence I uploaded anonymously to a neutral forum. His employer initiated an internal review that same afternoon, suspending him pending investigation into data access logs. Within weeks, the competitor filed, citing unsustainable burn rates exacerbated by lost credibility after the public exposure. Creditors seized assets, and the board dissolved remaining teams, leaving Kyle without severance or references. Job boards showed his profile updated, frantically applying to junior roles far below his former title. I returned to Manhattan focused on Nexus pipelines, delegating follow-up legal filings to corporate counsel who pursued cease and desist orders to protect our patents. Victoria commended the proactive defense during our weekly sync, allocating resources to accelerate filings in multiple jurisdictions. Daily routine absorbed any lingering thoughts. Mornings started with market scans and team huddles refining deployment schedules for upcoming releases. Afternoons involved vendor negotiations that secured better cloud rates, directly impacting margins on enterprise contracts. Evenings meant reviewing analyst reports on sector trends, adjusting strategies to capture emerging opportunities in embedded finance. No room for distraction, no energy wasted on what-ifs from a past relationship that ended years prior. The incident reinforced internal policies at Nexus, mandating stricter code reviews and contributor agreements that I helped draft. Victoria integrated the case into onboarding training as a real-world example of vigilance in competitive landscapes. Professional momentum built steadily through closed deals and positive earnings mentions keeping my calendar packed with stakeholder meetings across coasts. Personal life remained streamlined, gym sessions and meal preps fitting neatly between commitments. Kyle's final attempt at contact came via email, begging for a recommendation which I deleted unread. Nexus Security flagged it as potential harassment, adding him to blocked senders without further action required from me. Operations demanded full attention as we onboarded 2 additional flagship clients, each requiring custom integrations that tested team capacity but delivered recurring revenue streams. I led architecture reviews, ensuring scalability, drawing on lessons from every phase of growth since Berlin. Powering on after 5 years, hundreds of family messages flooded in. Mom had sent a video attachment time-stamped 3 months prior, her face swollen from crying, as she pleaded into the camera about missing her middle daughter and begging for any sign of life. She repeated the wedding oversight as a horrible mistake, promising to make it right if I just responded. Dad followed with a lengthy email chain, starting polite, then turning desperate, outlining health scares and financial strains that he claimed stemmed from guilt over pushing me away. He attached scanned letters from extended relatives, echoing apologies and invitations to holiday gatherings long past. My brother Ethan chimed in through voice notes left on an old number forwarded to email, his tone shifting from casual updates about his marriage to direct appeals for reconciliation, mentioning therapy sessions where the therapist suggested reaching out might heal old wounds. He offered to fly anywhere at his expense for a weekend talk, no strings attached. My sister Jordan took a sharper approach in direct messages across platforms I rarely checked, accusing me of selfishness for abandoning the family during tough times, and labeling my silence as dramatic punishment disproportionate to one forgotten ticket. She shared screenshots of social posts portraying a perfect sibling bond that never existed, demanding I explain myself publicly to clear her image. I read everything in one sitting at the kitchen counter sipping tea, while notifications kept pinging. Mom escalated to group texts, including cousins sharing childhood photos with captions about lost time. Dad forwarded bank statements showing transfers to private investigators who traced nothing beyond the Austin exit. Ethan proposed video calls scheduled around my supposed work hours, guessing at time zones and sending calendar invites that auto-declined. Jordan tagged me in stories, questioning why successful professionals ghost their roots, gaining sympathy likes from mutual connections I had muted years ago. The volume peaked around what would have been Grandma's birthday, with coordinated efforts including floral deliveries to the old address and cards forwarded by the post office. Each attempt carried the same underlying expectation that forgiveness waited on my end alone. I drafted a single response addressed to the group thread, keeping it under 20 words. "I'm fine, living well. Please stop contacting me." Sent from a new account with read receipts disabled, then archived the conversation. Phone numbers went to block lists, emails to spam filters, social accounts to private with follower requests ignored. Delivery services received instructions to refuse packages, and the building concierge confirmed no further access for unannounced visitors. Attempts tapered over weeks as boundaries held firm. Mom tried one last voicemail through a burner app, voice cracking about grandchildren she might never meet, but the system flagged it automatically. Dad's final message acknowledged the line drawn, wishing peace without pushing further. Ethan and Jordan shifted to passive posts, hinting at estrangement without naming names, gathering virtual support that changed nothing on my side. I adjusted privacy settings across boards and apps, ensuring no digital breadcrumbs led back. Life continued uninterrupted in the city rhythm of meetings and metrics. No invitations accepted, no explanations offered, no energy diverted to debates, long settled internally. Victoria offered me VP of Global Operations during a closed-door review of quarterly projections outlining expanded equity grants and a path to COO within 2 years if Nexus hit aggressive targets. She presented the promotion as recognition for steering the fintech division through record revenues, complete with a compensation package that included performance bonuses tied to market share gains. I listened in the corner office overlooking Central Park, noting the structured incentives and reporting lines that would anchor me deeper into corporate hierarchy. After she finished, I declined politely, explaining a preference to build independently rather than climb internally. Victoria expressed surprise but respected the choice, offering transition support and a glowing reference for future endeavors. Within a month, I incorporated Carter FinAI in Delaware, with seed capital from personal savings, and a small circle of angel investors met through conference circuits. The company focused on embedded credit intelligence for e-commerce platforms, licensing proprietary models to merchants seeking seamless underwriting at checkout. I leased modest space in Soho, hiring a core team of 6 engineers and 2 sales leads, committed to revenue milestones over vanity metrics. Growth accelerated through partnerships with payment processors, integrating our API for instant loan approvals on high-value carts. Clients reported conversion lifts averaging 28%, driving word-of-mouth referrals that filled the pipeline without paid acquisition. We secured Series A funding at a $40 million pre-money valuation, led by a venture firm specializing in fintech infrastructure. Operations scaled methodically with automated testing pipelines and SOC 2 compliance baked in from day one, avoiding the pitfalls that sank earlier competitors. I handled product vision while delegating finance to a CFO recruited from a bulge bracket bank, ensuring clean cap tables and transparent reporting for institutional rounds. By year 3, Carter FinAI filed for IPO on Nasdaq under the ticker CFAI, pricing shares at $27 to raise $250 million for global expansion. The offering valued the company at $1 billion post-money, with lockup periods protecting early backers and employee options vesting on accelerated schedules. Bell-ringing day featured a lean delegation on the floor, no fanfare beyond required photos. Public filings revealed sustained profitability and client retention above 95%, drawing analyst coverage that projected market dominance in embedded lending within 5 years. Stock opened strong and climbed steadily on earnings beats, rewarding patience with compound returns for all stakeholders. Meanwhile, ripples from past decisions surfaced indirectly. Ethan faced divorce proceedings when his spouse cited insurmountable debt from failed real estate flips, financed during market highs, liquidating joint assets to cover margins calls that wiped retirement savings. Court documents listed irreconcilable financial stress as grounds finalizing separation without alimony disputes. Jordan watched influencer partnerships evaporate as brands shifted budgets to authentic nano creators, leaving her with unpaid taxes on gifted inventory and a leased Miami condo she could no longer afford. Bankruptcy filings under Chapter 7 discharged unsecured claims but erased credit lines, forcing a return to entry-level marketing gigs in suburban Illinois. The original Austin employer accepted a fire sale acquisition by a private equity roll-up specializing in distressed tech assets valued at pennies on the dollar compared to peak estimates. Surviving staff received retention bonuses contingent on migration to the buyer's legacy stack, effectively ending the brand I once knew. I monitored none of it directly. All channels remained severed numbers, blocked profiles, hidden mutual contacts instructed to respect privacy. Legal counsel handled cease and desist for any indirect outreach attempting to leverage my name in settlement talks or media spins. Board meetings consumed bandwidth alongside regulatory filings and talent acquisition for international offices in London and Singapore. Personal investments diversified into real estate investment trusts and municipal bonds, building wealth independent of family narratives or expectations. The lesson crystallized through every milestone: don't wait for family to remember you, create value on your terms, then disappear from anyone unworthy of the life you build.